We're going to talk about dilations. Dilations, I'm sure you have heard of it before. Maybe you cannot just remember. Dilation make a figure or a shape or anything you see bigger or smaller. It can shrink it or it can enlarge it. I would say the one that you've heard of, the dilation, the word dilation the most of, is when you go to an eye doctor. When you go there, the eye doctor, right, puts eye drops in your eyes, and that makes your pupils get it bigger, right, enlarge, dilate them to make them bigger, and then they dilate back to shrink. What do we use when we indicate dilation? Dilation, we use scale factor. Scale factor actually means multiply. And the symbol, the letter that we use for scale factor is K. So scale factor, it either makes a shape, a number, or anything we have when we're dilating. It's either going to make it bigger or smaller. And you may say, well, you know what, how do you make something smaller using multiplication? Well, let's look at this. If I have that number 8 and I multiply it by number 2, if I say scale factor is 2, I get 16, right? So I enlarge the number 8. Now let's take the same number 8, and let's say I'm going to multiply it by 0.5. And guess what? 8 times actually 0.5 is 4. So what happened? I made that number 8 smaller. I shrunk it. Oh. What we've noticed, if I say my K, my scale factor, the multiplication is bigger than 1, we're making the image, the number, the shape bigger. If the scale factor is smaller than 1, right, we are going to shrink it down. We're actually going to make it smaller. Let's look at an example. We have to dilate this rectangle A, B, and C by a scale factor of 3. Well, scale factor means multiply, right? And we're multiplying it by 3. Well, what are we multiplying? We're going to multiply every coordinate for every point by 3. So let's start with the point A. The coordinates for point A are -1 and 1. The coordinates for point B, if you count that correctly, on the x-axis is 2, and then when we went 1 unit down, so it's 2 and -1. Coordinates for point C are 2 on the x-axis and 1 on the y-axis. And the coordinates for point D are -1 and then up 1. Now what are we going to do to scale this image? We have to multiply every number we see, every coordinate, by 3. And I would like for you to think about, do you think we're going to make this image bigger or smaller? Our scale factor, think about it, is bigger than 1. Let's see what's going to happen. We're going to take -1 for point A, multiply it by 3, which will give us -3. The other -1 multiplied by 3 is also a -3. So coordinates for A prime is -3 and -3. Once you have it, let's say we're going to plot it. We're going to put the point on our coordinate plane. So that's our A prime. Let's do the same for point B. Every number I see, I'm going to multiply by 3. That's my scale factor. 2 times 3 is 6. -1 times 3 is -3. So coordinates for B prime are 6 and -3. There it is. We're going to plot it, right? Now we have our point C. What do we do? Well, same thing. Every number, every coordinate is going to get multiplied by scale factor 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. So C prime coordinates is 6 on the x-axis, and then go up 3 units. That's C prime. Let's find D prime. -1 times 3 is negative 3. And 1 times 3 is positive 3. That is our point D prime. After we plot these points, we're going to connect it to recreate our new dilated rectangle. And what have you noticed? Scale factor was bigger than 1, so we actually enlarged it. Now let's look what we have next. We have a rectangle A, B, C, and D, and we're supposed to dilate it by a scale factor of 1/2, or 1/2, or just a half, right? So every coordinate for every point I see, I will multiply by 1/2. Remember, 1/2 is literally you're halving the number down. You're taking half of the number that you see. All right, let's give us coordinates for A. Point A coordinates is -3, and we did not go up or down, so it's -3 and 0. Point B, from the origin start, right, is 5 and 0. We did not go up or down. Now we're going to look at our point C. Point C is 5, also on the x-axis, and then we went 4 units up. And our point D, we're going to count our units. We went -3, right? We get 3 units to the left, so it's -3. And then we went 4 units up. So those are coordinates for the rectangle A, B, C, and D. Every number that I see at this point, I have to multiply by 1/2. All right? That is our scale factor. And again, I would like for you to think about if we are going to shrink this image or if we're going to enlarge this image. And keep in mind, we're multiplying by 1/2. So, A prime, -3 times 1/2 is -1.5. 0 times 1/2 is a 0. B prime, we have to multiply 5 by 1/2 as well as the 0 by 1/2. 5 times 1/2 is 2.5. 0 times 1/2 is still a 0. Point C prime, we have to multiply the number 5 by 1/2 as well as number 4 by 1/2. 5 times 1/2 is 2.5, and 4 times 1/2 is 2. Now we have point D. So D prime, we have to multiply from point D everything by 1/2. -3 times 1/2 as well as 4 times 1/2. -3 times 1/2 is -1.5. And 4 times 1/2 is 2. So we have found our coordinates for A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. Now what we're going to do, we're just going to plot these points and connect it. -1 and 5 is A prime. 2.5 and 0 is B prime. And I'm sorry, A prime is -1.5 and 0. C is 2.5 and up to. D is -1.5 and 2. And we shrunk the image. Yay!